Long ago at Kadesh, Ramesses II came close to losing a major fight. He faced a large Hittite force that nearly broke his army. Later, he turned that close call into a tale of victory, carved on walls and written in his records. This episode shows how he did it. In the late 13th century BC, Egypt under Ramesses II and the Hittite Empire under Muwatalli II pushed for control of Syria. Kadesh sat on the Orontes River and kept switching hands like it enjoyed drama. Amuru guarded the roads into the region, and its ruler, Bentashina, changed his loyalty from the Hittites to Egypt. Muwatalli took this as betrayal and moved to take the land back. Ramesses saw a chance to push Egyptian power into Canaan and Syria again. Both leaders prepared for a campaign they thought would shape the Levant. And so, in his 5th year on the throne, Ramesses gathered his army at Pi-Ramesses. Egyptian records describe 4 divisions named Amun, Ra, Pitar, and Seth. Each division held thousands of infantry and hundreds of chariots. He also brought Canaanite allies and hired fighters like the Shurden. Muwatalli called up a large Hittite force with many vassal states from Anatolia and northern Mesopotamia. Egyptian texts brag about 19 allies on the Hittite side, maybe to make the victory look better later. Then, in the spring of 1274 BC, Ramesses marched northeast through Canaan toward Kadesh. His army moved through the narrow Lebanese passes without trouble, at least according to his scribes. The marching line went for miles. Ramesses pushed ahead with the Amun division, eager to reach Kadesh and maybe a bit too confident. However, his haste put him at risk. Beyond the old hills near the city on the north bank of the Orontes, Muwatalli's full army waited in hiding. They stayed quiet and let Ramesses walk straight into their trap. By early May, Ramesses reached Kadesh and set up his camp on the north bank of the Orontes. He felt relaxed because 2 men he caught told him the Hittite army was still far up near Aleppo. But they were lying, and he believed them, which was not his best moment. He pushed ahead with only the Amun division and his guard. The Ra division lagged a few miles behind. The Ptar and Seth divisions were even farther south. His whole line stretched out like a poorly planned parade. No one knew the full Hittite army sat hidden just west of Kadesh, behind the Tell. Then, Egyptian scouts caught 2 real spies. These men said the Hittite army was right there near Kadesh, in huge numbers. Ramesses understood he had walked into a trap. So, he called his officers in and scolded them. He then sent word for the Ptar and Seth divisions to hurry north. Ramesses and the Amun division formed up near the camp. The Ra division, however, was still strung out near Shabtuna, and there was no time to fix the mess. So, Muwatalli struck fast. About 2,500 Hittite chariots came from behind Kadesh, crossed the river, and aimed for the Ra division. Each Hittite chariot held 3 men and weighed more than the Egyptian ones. The charge smashed into the Ra division while its men were trying to make camp. The line fell apart in seconds. Chariots overturned, men ran, and the Ra division broke in all directions. Survivors rushed north toward Ramesses, with Hittite chariots right behind them. The attack rolled straight into the Egyptian camp. The Amun division panicked, as the Hittite front pushed through the outer line. Parts of the camp fell at once. Some men ran, some were crushed, and tents dropped everywhere. The place turned into dust, shouting and flying arrows. Hittite records say Muwatalli had planned for this. He wanted one strike to end the Egyptian force. Ramesses stood close to defeat. Some Hittite charioteers even felt so sure they had won that they stopped to grab loot from the camp. Ramesses II stood his ground. Egyptian records place him alone in his camp, while most of his soldiers ran. He later said no officer, no charioteer, and no regular soldier stayed with him. It sounded like a bad day at work, only with more spears. He called out to Amun because he still believed the gods took his calls. He climbed into his chariot and picked up his bow. He seemed ready to die fighting. A few guards stayed with him, which says a lot about workplace loyalty. He then charged straight at the Hittite crowd. The texts claim he moved like the war god Montu. He cut his way through the circle of enemies. Another line says he faced more than 2,000 chariots and kept shooting anyway. The Hittite charioteers had wandered off to loot the camp. His sudden attack hit them before they could sort themselves out. Confusion spread fast. Ramesses said many fell into the river like unlucky swimmers. Reliefs show him firing from his chariot, while bodies scatter under the horses. With his small group behind him, he pushed the fight out of the camp. The Hittite chariots lost speed as they got stuck in tents and baggage. Ramesses kept pressing forward. His record says he charged the Hittite ranks 6 times. He later claimed he saved his army with his own hands and thanked Amun for the strength to do it. Ramesses' counterattack helped, but it did not turn the tide by itself. The fight changed when fresh troops reached him. The first to arrive were the Nearin, a group whose name means the youths. They were likely auxiliaries from Amurru, or hired fighters from Canaan. They heard the noise and came in from the west. They struck the Hittite chariots on the side, while those chariots tried to regroup. The Hittites expected to meet only Ramesses' worn-down men, so the surprise hit them hard. As the Hittites stumbled, the Ptah division came up from the south. Ptah's soldiers pushed into the back of the Hittite lines. Their pressure helped form a loose ring around the crowded Hittite chariot force. Muwatalli II watched all this from the walls of Kadesh. He sent out his reserves, about 1,000 more chariots led by his nobles, in a final attempt to regain control. The battle hit its height through the afternoon. The Hittites threw out as many as 6 heavy charges. Each charge was pushed back by the now reinforced Egyptians. The Hittite chariots were built for open ground, yet they found themselves boxed in by Egyptians on 3 sides, and the Orontes River behind them. Many drivers tried to flee across the water. Chariots flipped, snagged, and disappeared under the current. Egyptian records even claim some Hittite fighters drove into the river as fast as crocodiles, which says a lot about the day they were having. By evening, the field south of Kadesh went quiet. Both armies had reached the limit of what they could do. Ramesses II had pulled his men back from disaster and forced the Hittite chariots away from his camp, though the Hittites still held Kadesh and its strong walls. Ramesses' troops were battered and tired, with no strength left to storm the city. Muwatalli kept a solid garrison inside Kadesh, with surviving chariots gathered behind the walls. Neither army was ready to fight again. The next day brought a tense face-off, yet no one moved. And so, the battle ended in a stalemate. On the ground, Ramesses could say he held the field after turning back the assault. But in the larger picture, the outcome hurt Egypt. He did not take Kadesh or shake Hittite control in Syria. He sent messages to Muwatalli, then chose to pull back, since there was no way to keep a long siege so far from home. Egyptian records frame this as a planned withdrawal, and Ramesses said he had beaten his foes and never aimed to seize the city anyway. In truth, the Hittites kept Kadesh. Muwatalli II did not win a clean victory, yet he kept his position safe. Kadesh and Amurru stayed under Hittite influence. Modern scholars call the battle a draw, since each empire claimed success and neither gained a clear win. Ramesses II may not have taken Kadesh, but he made sure the story at home said he did. He ordered big carvings that turned a rough day into his big moment. His people wrote two versions of the tale, one long and one short, because he liked options. They copied them many times, so no one could miss the point. The long poem went on temple walls 8 times, and the short one went up 7 times. Visitors at Abydos, Karnak, Luxor, the Ramesseum, and Abu Simbel could read how he saved the day all by himself. Old papyrus scraps hint that the story wandered beyond those walls too. The carvings mix pictures and words, which was handy for people who liked one more than the other. Scenes show horses charging, chariots breaking, and Hittites running for the river. The short text stands beside these scenes and tells how the king pulled off a rescue when things looked hopeless. The poem repeats the same picture of Ramesses as the lone fighter who steps in when his troops fall apart. The story keeps pointing to Amun as his backup, which is a pretty strong support team. At Abu Simbel and other temples, Ramesses fires his bow while Amun-Re appears beside him like a giant bodyguard. The message is, the gods wanted him to win. Therefore, the enemy looks crushed in the carvings. Hittite soldiers fall into the Orontes or crouch under horses, and Ramesses grabs prisoners by the hair. The poem lists allied forces from far places to show how big the fight was, then says he made them run anyway. It even claims Muwatalli turned and begged his gods when Ramesses charged, which must have been awkward for him. Again, the records push one idea, that Egypt won big. Hattusili III later wrote a letter teasing Ramesses for celebrating a victory the Hittites did not agree happened. That little note shows the message traveled far. Meanwhile, Ramesses kept shaping his version of the day wherever he could. At Luxor Temple, the front walls became a long strip of Kadesh scenes. At Abu Simbel, big panels sit beside many lines of text. The Ramesseum holds wide battle scenes with full captions. No other Egyptian battle got this kind of treatment. Ramesses placed the story in 5 major temples, so people would always see him as the hero who stood alone, faced the crowd, and won with help from the gods. After the battle, Egypt's grip on Syria slipped. Amurru went back to Hittite hands, and Kadesh stayed a Hittite post. The two powers kept fighting for years with little to show for it. Diplomacy finally ended it 15 years later, when Ramesses II and Hattusili III signed a peace treaty that confirmed a stalemate and set a stable border. And so, in the end, while Egypt kept the story, Hatti kept the land. Ramesses kept Kadesh alive in his carvings and texts. People saw him on temple walls with Amun at his side. The real outcome diminished. The image stayed clear. He came close to losing, but he shaped the memory to his gain. And that choice carried his name far beyond the battle. As always, what we know today comes from later reports, biased royal records, and evidence that is still incomplete. So we keep filling gaps and checking the pieces we have.